We talk a lot about good movies on this podcast. Today ain't that day. Today we're talking about Con Air. Nicolas Cage, John Malkovich, John Cusack, a bunch of criminals on a plane. What could possibly go wrong? I got something that went right for you, though. Kathleen Belew, professor at Northwestern University, came on today to talk about this movie and a whole bunch of other stuff, including her scholarship, talking about violence in the United States. Her first book, called Bring the War Home, The White Power Movement in Paramilitary America, explores how white power activists create a social movement through a common story about betrayal by the government, war, weapons, and uniforms and technologies. And she's writing a new book called Home at the End of the World, which talks about our era of apocalypse through a history focused on her native Colorado, where in the 1990s, high-profile kidnappings and murders, right-wing religious ideology, and a mass shooting exposed rents in America's social fabric and dramatically changed our relationship with place, violence, and politics. You guys probably follow me on Twitter, but you're damn sure following Kathleen because she is an absolute behemoth in our world. Absolutely amazing. I've been following Kathleen for the longest time, and I was so excited when she agreed to be on this podcast to talk to you about this movie. I asked her what movie she wanted to do, and she was like, I want to do Con Air. It was first words out of her mouth. She's like, I want to do Con Air. There was never even a question about doing another movie. It was always going to be this one. And I guess that fits because, you know, we love Nicolas Cage over here. So sit back, relax, strap on your seatbelts, make sure your tray tables are up and they're upright and locked positions because this flight's about to get bumpy. Con Air is next in Historians of Movies podcast. Hi, Kathleen Belew. How are you today?
I'm great.
But you're also in the middle of a thunderstorm.
I'm in the middle of a thunderstorm, but we're going to talk about Con Air. I'm so excited.
We are going to talk about Con Air, Nicolas Cage, your work, any pizza. First and foremost, most important question. Let's get this off the bat right away. Coke or Pepsi? What do you got?
Coke.
Okay.
But I'll drink both. I'm an amenable person.
I'm not an amenable, but actually, you know what I'm doing? I'm actually drinking out of my sweet tea right now.
I have hot tea because of the rain.
Oh my gosh, I was drinking hot tea like 2 days ago, and I was like, I am slowly morphing into my great-grandmother because she would drink this hot tea, and I drink it on planes now.
Really? Oh, that's a move.
Well, somebody was saying that because turbulence and stuff like that, but I'm like, look, if a plane ride's bad, hot things on my, spilling tea is not my big problem. I don't care. Like, that just gets me ready to go. Let's party. Which brings us into our film today, which features a somewhat awkward plane ride.
Yeah, a plane ride with like a lot of turbulence.
All right, so I reached out to you, and I've been following you on Twitter for a while, and we got talking, and you were like, "Yeah, let's do a movie." I'm like, "Sweet, let's talk about your work." And you're like, "Con Air." I was like, "What? Why?" All right, why did you make me watch this movie twice and then read multiple articles about Con Air to prepare for this? Like, why Con Air? Why do you love this movie?
I love Con Air. I think so. I am a historian of the recent past. I'm working on a book about the 90s right now. So there's lots of like reasons that Con Air is, a very rich text. But it's Con Air. It's Nicolas Cage with the long hair. It's got John Malkovich. It's got like so many people. And I also think it's just sort of, it's the apex of the really good, really bad movie. That's just such trashy like mess, but it's a delight, right? I love this movie. There are many other movies like it that I also love, but this one's my favorite.
Yes, in that regard of the really good, really bad movie that like brings me, in my mind, the apex is Roadhouse.
Oh yeah, that was good too. And I do love the National Treasure series, particularly if you're watching with an early Americanist, because it's really fun to watch people unspool about archival preservation while watching Nicolas Cage.
I know. Well, this actually goes back to an old conversation I'd had, and some people have heard about it before. I've got a friend of mine, Lisa Overholter. She's an archaeologist up at McGill. And she kind of like, we used to have these debates because she would always say, archaeologists have Harrison Ford. They've got, they get Indiana Jones. And I'm like, historians have Nicolas Cage. We have Benjamin Franklin Gates. But in this regard, we've got Cameron Poe.
Cameron Poe.
Alabama.
With his long, luscious hair that I just read in an article was Nicolas Cage's contribution to the role and like his big idea. And I read just now that he also wanted to have a giant beard and they made him shave it because they felt like they were paying him too much to not see his face.
Ooh, this gets into a whole thing about like gender roles and so forth and like male bodies and such, because I too am a beard sporting man from the South. But it felt like beards became like a thing like after the 90s, right? Like you didn't you would like some of these bad guys have got beards, but like men wearing beards didn't feel like it became a thing at least until I could wear one. So I may actually be the instigator for this entire thing. This doesn't happen. Beards don't actually happen until like 2007.
Only when you have a beard that there are beards. I also think it's funny that they put it this way in like a 25-year Con Air retrospective article when his next movie was literally Face Off.
Yeah. And this is like part of the Holy Trilogy, Holy Trilogy of like Nicolas Cage action movies, right? There's Face Off, this movie, and then The Rock, which is, I think all three of them are really good, bad films.
Yeah, exactly. This was a moment.
Oh, he definitely had his moment. And then when was Leaving Las Vegas? Was this
before this? So Con Air is after Leaving Las Vegas. So he did his like quiet, pensive-ish art moment, and then just like Con Air.
I think he got his Oscar, and then it was like game on, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, and I don't blame him. I mean, because then he could just get paid. But it's weird. I don't think of like Nicolas Cage as action hero, even though he's got this little moment in time, right? I mean, I don't know. Do you think? When you imagine Nicolas Cage, who do you think about? Like, is there a vibe?
Like which character?
I don't know, maybe a character or a general ethos of Nicolas Cage. Like this just got deep. What is the ethos of Nicolas Cage?
Ethos of Nicolas Cage. I don't know, but I feel like that should be a movie.
I feel like that should be a course.
Yeah. I also think that it's super interesting to see the older movies now that he's become sort of he's now sort of a meta cultural product. Mm-hmm. And I wonder when that started, because definitely Cameron Poe is not the same thing as Nicolas Cage. No. Whereas I think more recently we see a lot of Nicolas Cage playing the meta cultural form of Nicolas Cage.
Did he not just play himself in a role with Pedro Pascal?
Yes.
Pablo Escobar. I don't know what I'm thinking of.
Yes, and that's the clip going around on TikTok with the eating the crackers, right?
I cannot get away from like where they're driving and there's
I haven't seen this movie. I've only seen the clip.
Thank you. I haven't either, right? And I'm supposed to be like movie guy, and I'm already done with the movie. And I love Pedro Pascal. Like I was down on Game of Thrones. I've been down on this Last of Us. Obviously, I'm super in on Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And I have zero interest at this point. If every time I hear that song, I just want to run outside into traffic.
Yeah.
You and I shall make a meme of doing the Nicolas Cage thing with a make your own kind of music, whatever.
And I think meme might be where I draw the line about my attempt at social media.
That's a real question, though, right? You brought up social media. Like, you're very active on Twitter. How has that informed like your own scholarship? Do you feel like your work has changed because of like social media?
I feel like social media is one of the places where I can, not publish, but where I can do some public history and some public interaction with people who might not otherwise find my work. Twitter has been amazing, not only for sort of, I do a lot of public history tweets from my research, but I also have been able to find journalists that way, have been able to sort of help shape stories that way, and connect to expert communities not in my field that way. So Twitter has been like my main point of contact for people who are not historians, who are studying the white power movement, who are studying extremism. And by those relationships, there have been some interesting sort of developments in the work.
I found that in a lot of same ways, right? Like it connected me to all these other groups. And then for a while, and it, obviously since the Elon thing it feels like a different space. And there was this whole movement to like go someplace else. I'm like, you guys just decide where we're going and then I'll go, because everyone's like, oh, let's go here. Let's go here. I'm like, and no one could figure out where they were going. I'm like, I'm just going to be here on Elon Air, I guess.
Yeah, that's where I landed too. Until there's another aircraft in the sky.
I know. We're going to beat this metaphor to death. This is awesome.
We are. Yes. And it won't even be the only thing or person beaten to death in this conversation.
No, we could talk about the movie itself. So we could talk about all the people that get beaten to death, because this is a happy day. There's absolutely nothing going on in American history or world history right now. I'm texting you. So for those of you who don't know, today we're recording on April 4th, and like Trump got arraigned, an hour ago or something like that. I'm texting you like, do we still do this? You're like, yeah, let's go. Right. So I'm like, do we want to be involved in news? And we're like, nah, it was fine.
Nothing is going to happen until later today, I believe. So I'm okay being over here.
Yeah, he's going to fly back to Mar-a-Lago, I think, later tonight.
What airplane's he going to take? No, just kidding.
He's obviously taking Con Air, is what he's taking. So, yeah.
This is an amazing moment we just had.
I'm
not sure if anybody else is going to think this is hilarious, but we right now are enjoying this Con Air airplane reference a lot.
I tweeted something out earlier about it, and people are like, it's like, just go. And I was like, and then I tried to be cute. I was like, I keep trying to come up with these zingers, and I am failing. I'm just not as amusing as I actually think that I am. Because I was like, today is brought to you by the letters D, J, and T, and the number 34.
Oh, I saw that one. I left. But I didn't do anything because I don't know. I don't know why. I'll go back and click.
No, you don't have to. Now that I brought it up, you've ruined the moment. So thank you. Now you see that. Now that's gone meta as well. People are like, is Sesame Street even on anymore?
Yes, it is. I actually just went to a conference in Florida where I got to speak in a different part of the conference, but also there was one of the leaders of Sesame Workshop. Not only is Sesame Street still on, but they're doing all of this outreach in other parts of the world, teaching kids empathy and open-mindedness and just generally being wonderful people.
Oh, there's like a bunch of versions of it.
It's incredible. It's incredible. They were showing us like versions of like the Rohingya genocides. Like they were showing us versions of like Rohingya Muppets who were talking about, it's incredible. It's amazing.
Meet kids where they are. I think so. Yeah. And Sesame Street's like, well, although I was not a Sesame Street guy, people are like, I thought you guys were talking about Con Air. I'm like, first Fraggle Rock, because that was my jam growing up in Louisiana, which is why we were talking. I was like, I hate this accent as a Southerner. I hate when other people do accents. We'll have to get to it in a bit.
The Nicolas Cage accent is like, I think the main barrier of entry to Con Air as a movie, because it is just, I know he committed to the character because I can see the hair that he grew. I can't see the beard, but I've read about it. But that accent it's truly, it's abysmal. My parents are both from Tennessee, so I have a similar sensitivity to this issue. I have, the kind of accents in my family are the kind where nobody has an accent until they're tired or angry, and then all of a sudden they have a real serious accent. Yeah, but no, his accent's terrible. I don't understand. No dialogue coach?
Well, apparently he went to Alabama for a while to learn the accent. And I'm like, what part of Alabama did you go to learn whatever that is? Because one of my great peeves in movies is when people try to do a Southern accent and they inevitably ham it up. It's awful. There are actually all these different shades to a Southern accent that I'm familiar with. There's the deep South, like you might find in Georgia and maybe Alabama. There's the Appalachia. I don't even think Appalachia is the South. It's its own thing. But then there's the Upper South, right? Like Tennessee, Kentucky, and so forth. There's all these different places, and then the stuff in the Delta, which is completely different as well, right? Which is where he's at in Alabama, Mississippi, and then Louisiana as well. Every time I watch this and listen, it's like, I can't do it now because I'm working on my Malkovich impression. I was like, can I just fast forward to the main bad guy? Because it is just nails on a chalkboard listening to Nick Cage.
I can't do it either, but it's when he says butterfly or hummingbird or whatever.
Oh, my hummingbird, I'm coming home to you. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Here's my question. This is a real question that I remember having at the time I first saw this movie in 1997 in the theater with my first boyfriend. was a very exciting read. Anyway, my question is, why did he need to be, does that character need to be from Alabama? I don't even think that needed to happen that way. He needs to be from somewhere where he would be sent to prison for an accidental death. One of the reasons that I think this is like an text of the 90s is for all of the things it says about incarceration in the United States. We have like a sex offender plot line, we have like gang violence plot lines, we have just general idea of the psychopath sociopath plot line. And I think all of these things are so deeply historically situated in the 90s and in this particular way.
I think there are two different things. First, I think coming out of Leaving Las Vegas, Nicolas Cage goes to this movie and says, yeah, man, I could do this movie, but like, I want to do an accent. It's like, I want to act in this movie. I want to take on something new. And I think that maybe there's something there about Nick Cage, but I think maybe what they're playing off of are these ideas of stereotypes based on this idea of like Southern honor and defending the man's role to defend the woman kind of a thing is probably my guess. Is like, that's probably my guess. I mean, it's not like that wouldn't happen someplace else, but I think that there's a subliminal kind of like, oh, let's go here specifically because that's what Southern men do. But also you can like, if you play off these stereotypes of the guys who attack him in the bar, one of which is one of the guys from Heat, which is a movie that I freaking love. Did you not recognize that?
No.
The guy he kills is Waingro from Heat.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
None of those guys had Southern accents though.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were talking about the sort of like, there's like a whole collection of 90s cultural products around the lack of justice in the South. Also, like that's like I forget what year the Lights Went Out in Georgia, Reba McEntire song came out.
Reba, yeah.
And then of course My Cousin Vinny.
Another film that we'll be doing here on the pod soon.
Yes, I saw. I was trying to give you an opportunity. I was so excited.
That one's gonna be a hot mess. I'm like, so guest host, why do lawyers keep ruining my life? So that'll be the first.
Probably they had the wrong suit. That's all.
Oh no, that'll be fine. That one will be a lot. That one will be a blast. So yeah, I think that probably leads, and I think that one of the things that interests me is, and I got to talk about this the other day when I was talking to Chris Hodgson when we did this one on Oh Brother We're Out There, featuring this whole other Southern thing, right? When you get into casting these films and you want to situate them into a place, the South, if you're an outsider, the South has this very distinctive like identity in a lot of ways. Like I remember when I was in graduate school in Minnesota, and I would say, I'm from the South, and it was like I'd been from like another world. It feels to me like there's a sweeping generalization of like Southern mannerisms, Southern culture. I don't know. Is this a thing that you said your folks are from Tennessee? Is this a thing you're familiar with?
Oh yes. I remember feeling, I think I wrote an article about this in college at one point about like the way the South is portrayed in film. And at the time I was looking at Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Big Fish, which I think is a movie we don't get anymore, and Cold Mountain, which if you look at the mountains in Cold Mountain, it's just like, it's not only not the South, it's like absolutely not at all what anything looks like. The light is wrong, the mountains are wrong, the trees are wrong, the whole thing is wrong. And then they put a whole bunch of really amazing acting in it. And those people clearly had lots of dialect coaching, but the scene is totally off in Cold Mountain. And then we get like Big Fish and Oh Brother are like that, like golden light. I guess it's a filter, but it was before we knew about filters.
Yeah.
Which is like this, I don't know. It's like this weird mythic, I don't know, but we recreate the South as a scene in such interesting ways. I think in American fiction more, but like, I don't know, we have Southern Gothic, we have Southern mythology, and then we have like, I don't know, new Southern Gothic, like True Blood and those. I don't know if students in my classes have even seen True Blood anymore, but that was an amazing sort of picture of the South.
True Blood was like, had its moment. Also, I do want to go back to you. I was watching an interview with Charlie Hunnam the other day.
Oh.
And he was talking about the roles that he's done. So one of my favorite things, I think his version of King Arthur is actually really good. I think they swung and missed on a couple spots, but I think that there's a lot more right there than's wrong. I actually really love that version. But he's talking about why he wanted that role, how he interviewed for it, and the guy asked him, he's like, "Why do you want?" Because he plays the bad guy that gets Jude Law. And he said, the confidence of youth. And when he said that right before they have that shootout at the end, I still love the way he said that. And I felt like Hunnam actually nailed the accent. So,
Right.
I was like, I don't know why Charlie Hunnam hasn't had he had the Sons of Anarchy thing, and this has nothing to do with Con Air, but whatever. I'm still kind of shocked that he hasn't. I don't know. I was waiting for a Charlie Hunnam time, I guess, especially coming out of Sons of Anarchy.
He's British, right?
Yeah.
Another person who can really do many dialects. We have many, Nicolas Cage has many talents, many outsized talents, but maybe not dialect.
Dialect, no. I think, and I also have a hard time, and I was talking about this with Clooney, except for a couple of roles. When I see Clooney in a film, I know I'm watching Clooney. And I think Cage is a lot like that. I just kind of know I'm watching Nick Cage. It's hard for Cage to disappear into a role, maybe the way that like Malkovich actually can.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I mean, you're kind of blessed with the same features and same. It's kind of hard to like convince somebody that you're one guy, one movie, or one person, another movie, whatever. But I also feel like after leaving Las Vegas, Cage changes. Did you ever see Wind Talkers?
No.
It's awful. It's so bad.
Really?
it's so incredibly over the top, and he's the whole idea is with the code talkers during World War II, and he's a guy, and he's got to kill his friend if he gets captured because they can't let the codes get broke, and it's so incredibly awful. Anyway, speaking to good awful movies, back to Con. Where do we start?
I want to talk about something that I noticed at the very beginning of the movie that I've never noticed before. That I think is actually a major plot point and possibly a conspiracy theory about Con Air that I now have. All right, so we meet. I'm going to lay this out just in case anybody's listening who has not yet experienced the magic of Con Air.
Yeah, I feel like people who like this is a
you should really go watch
zone.
it right now and then come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll wait. So Cameron Poe defends his wife's honor in the rain. And then he goes to jail because he accidentally kills the dude outside the bar. And then in the jail, he writes a series of very, very badly accented letters home. This is why I think I missed this so many times, because I have seen this movie a number of times. He talks about how his family, his baby girl and his wife, have sent him treats in prison. And he shows the snowballs. And then he's like, oh, they're helping me make friends. And he gives them to his cellmate. And then his cellmate is a diabetic. Okay, did he create the diabetes that later becomes the plot device that animates the entire movie? I'm just saying.
I'm just drinking my sweet tea here as you're saying that.
I'm just saying that, like, if the guy's already diabetic, probably he's not eating snowballs while in prison where he can't really regulate his blood sugar.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Set him up for diabetes so that later, in case there's any issues on a plane ride, I'll have a plot device that makes me trapped to do the honorable thing. Anyways, I don't know.
All right, listen, you write a lot on justice. So here's my problem here, which is actually with that initial fight, which is clearly picked by the three bad guys. The two are in danger, and is there any way in hell this guy is getting convicted of manslaughter during this fight? I mean, like, he didn't start the fight. This plays off the old Bruce Willis, my hands are lethal weapons kind of things, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I suppose that's the argument that he has to be in the South, right? Like that there is this idea that Southern justice can't recognize the distinction. We have we don't have to belabor the literature, but there are tons of books that talk about the South as uniquely violent for one reason or another. A lot of it is around like the idea of defending honor. But there's also there is legitimately some literature that shows continuing higher rates of convictions and death penalty convictions, particularly in states that used to have high rates of racial violence, including in the South. I would take all of that with like a massive grain of salt. But I understand, like, as a plot device that he has to go to jail.
You have to get him into jail somehow.
We have to have somebody on the plane who we know is a good person. So in the American story, capital S, that has to be that he defended the honor of a white lady so that he could then, be wrongly incarcerated. Poor Cameron Poe.
Let's talk about somebody else here in hair as well. John Cusack.
John Cusack.
In the wig that he's rocking in this film. This was like John Cusack having like his comeback, wasn't he? I mean, Cusack's got this, and then shortly afterwards, he's got what High Fidelity comes out in Grosse Pointe Blank. He has a mini resurrection. He's big in the 80s.
He is, and he's trying to all of those movies are. I guess not High Fidelity, but High Fidelity, and they're all like semi-action movies like this one. Never like a Nick Cage kind of a role, but a lot of hitman kind of roles or something slightly off kind of roles.
Grosse Pointe Blank, definitely. A lot of
fun. It is a lot of fun. And I also, shout out to the suit that he's wearing in this movie and to the sunglasses, both of which I bet you could find now in the Y2K fashion sections of several websites that make me weep.
See, I can't think about him without thinking about the car actually that he's driving around.
Oh yeah, the car that he steals from his
an old Corvette. Am I right?
Yeah, and doesn't he steals it from the not nice other guy, the other law,
I think,
that does not understand what's happening here.
Correct, right? Because you have to have the lawman antagonist. Right?
Yes.
The only difference is I kept expecting for that guy to be bad, but turns out he's just an ass.
He's just dumb. He's dumb and an ass, but whatever. He's one of the least interesting characters in this movie.
Yeah, well, least interesting characters, but that's because he's going up against every heavy hitter. I mean, Danny Trejo is in this movie, and he's ninth bill. You've got Machete in this film.
And right? He's not even a featured actor in this movie.
No,
Ving Rhames and John Malkovich and Steve Buscemi, and it goes on and on like this. I can't believe how many people they got to be in this movie.
It had to be a blast.
Yeah. I mean, so maybe we also should be thinking about Con Air as one of the great ensemble movies like Ocean's 11. Do you know what I mean? There's just so many good people that actually get to do something.
Oh, they're all doing their shtick, right?
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle is in this movie.
Yeah.
Before he is Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, I didn't even remember about that.
I actually wanted to go back real quick, while I'm thinking about it, because I'll forget about it in a second, because there's this interesting thing with Cusack. He's a U.S. Marshal.
Right.
Right? And this has got to be you don't get this film, I don't think, without the rise of The Fugitive and then U.S. Marshal. Are the Marshals having their own Nicolas Cage moment in the 1990s?
That's a great historical question. So the Marshals are in charge of moving around prisoners and Bureau of Prisons activities and in charge of apprehending fugitives.
Mm-hmm.
But the Marshals are also coming off some bad publicity after, all federal government agencies are coming off of some bad publicity earlier in the 90s with Waco and Ruby Ridge.
Yeah, we didn't probably handle that as well as we could have, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good,
That's my historical interpretation. Probably could have gone better.
So we're coming, this movie was filming right after the Oklahoma City bombing. It's not about that, but definitely the relationship between the government and the governed is central to a whole bunch of people's ideas about politics and life in this moment in American history. And I think, that's interesting about the Marshals. Why is he a Marshal instead of something else? And I think in many similar movies, you would see this character as a DEA agent. So it's kind of interesting that they didn't go in that direction. But it has to be a Marshal because they're moving prisoners around.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? And just the whole thing. But it seemed like this was the first time we were seeing U.S. Marshals in the 1990s. It felt like in the context of the contemporary age, where they were almost always prior to this being contextualized within the context of maybe the Old West.
Yeah.
Where they were maybe doing something different. And now Tommy Lee Jones comes along in The Fugitive and says, I don't care. And which is one of the great comebacks and one of the great slapdowns in film history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just felt like that for a moment. Can we talk about bad guys?
Oh, please. Yes. Who's your favorite bad guy in this movie? This is a hard question in Con Air. Because obviously the bad guys...
Pick my favorite murderer. Great. This will go well on this down clip later. Fletcher, our producer, go ahead and earmark this one. for the premise. Who is Jason's favorite murderer?
They're not all murderers, but like, who's the best bad guy in Con Air?
That's tough. Like, I love Steve Buscemi, even though he's a serial killer. But I felt like this is Steve Buscemi before. Like, you could almost like take this guy, the serial killer, and then he goes and gets like advanced degrees in like geophysics, and then hops on Armageddon.
Yeah.
Like 2 years later, right?
Yeah.
Feels like the exact same character that's like totally spaced out on an asteroid later on.
Yeah. So he's the one in the movie that they bring in and like Hannibal Lecter, like the full body restraint, the creepy mask, and handling him with sticks, basically. And the implication is like, oh, he looks like no big deal, but he's the scariest dude on this plane. And then in the movie, his character has one of the weirdest kind of unresolved scenes for me, where when he like wanders away from they've landed the plane to meet up with the drug cartel people in the middle, and he wanders away and encounters the little girl playing by herself in the middle of an abandoned area in a swimming pool in the middle of the afternoon. There are no adults anywhere else in this. So this scene, I have many questions.
Okay, go for it.
My first question is, okay, so we've just touched down in the middle of Nevada. The rest of this encampment is absolutely desolate where this little girl is. Do we think the little girl is real? Do we think the little girl is alive at the end of this encounter? Do we think this is a memory of a different little girl that this character has killed? Do we think that maybe this is like a abandoned nuclear test ban site and it's all devoid of people because they're all dead, and this is like a meta statement about like, the death toll of whatever in Nevada. And then at the end we see the plane leaves and we see that the little girl is standing there waving. But is she? I just think it's such a weird out of context scene that I'm not sure at all what I'm supposed to make of it.
I have a response for you. I know exactly who the little girl is.
Oh, you do?
She's an alien.
She's an alien?
Yeah, she's clearly an alien that has survived all the stuff at, is it Area 51? Is also out in Nevada. Clearly, yes. So what she has done then, therefore, has changed him significantly as a person through their contact. He's able to survive the film, gets away, goes on, then gets his degree in geophysics and switches his whole identity. It's through her that she saves the rest of humanity from an asteroid. This is what happens. He has an accelerated learning plot experience. And we've seen, like in other forms of fiction, that you can, in fact, be forgiven for your sins, a la Darth Vader. So
really, Steve Buscemi is the same character in all of these movies and they connect, is your argument?
Yeah, I feel like she allows him to transcend space and time. Clearly. That makes far more sense than unanswered questions. Just, what I always tell my students is if you can't find the answer, make one up. So therefore,
there you go.
That's why I'm an excellent scholar.
Well, yeah. I tend to I can't. This is another question I've had since seeing the movie way back a million years ago, and I've never satisfied this question for myself. So if anybody has a strong analysis, hit us up via Twitter, I guess.
Absolutely.
Tell us what's up with the little girl, and is she real or what's happening?
Hashtag Con Air.
Hashtag Con Air. Hashtag historians of the movies.
I was going to say probably Malkovich, though.
Oh, yeah. I think
it's got to be Malkovich.
Malkovich, I was reading, didn't even audition for the role of Cyrus the Virus. They were looking at like Mickey Rourke and Willem Dafoe and a bunch of people like that. And they ended up going with Malkovich, like not sight unseen because it's John Malkovich, but without an audition. And he just like showed up and like immediately fell into this role. And it's just like, I think it makes the whole movie, honestly. Like I think without John Malkovich, this movie would just be a mess.
Well, you got a couple of things going on. First of all, Malkovich by 97 isn't really known for playing a villain.
Yeah.
That's not his jam, and he's certainly not in these kinds of movies. He's more of a serious kind of an actor, kind of a guy, right? More restrained. I don't know, higher level. Like you see Malkovich in a movie with like Jeremy Irons or something.
Yeah.
But then also, in order for you to have a good villain, the villain has to have a code too, right? This in order to like really have a good movie, you have to find yourself at times aligning yourself with the villain, or at least kind of going, "Oh, okay, I understand why he or she did that," right? So Malkovich isn't necessarily crazy. I mean, bad guys are crazy, obviously. Disclaimer: nobody get upset. But you see early on, like he stops. He and Poe actually are ganging up against some of the other criminals on board on the plane. He's instilling order.
He has his own honor code, and immediately I want to take that. Not an honor code, but he has his own way of doing business, and at certain times aligns with Poe's honor code, I guess.
Yeah, I think he probably does have a certain honor code that's like, he's not the good guy. He's obviously the bad guy, and he's going to get what's coming to him. But I think in order, you almost have to show like Cyrus the Virus and Poe as mirror opposites in some ways, and you have to you almost have to look at them and say, okay, in another world, these guys could have gone fishing or whatever. Like there's enough there to where if these two branches, they don't branch off, like that there would have been a commonality.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but maybe at least a chemistry.
Yeah, there's something there. You have to find yourself like, so I think that's the reason why it was important when they first get on the plane. You have those two. Okay, it kind of aligning together, and then later on you're like, oh, okay, he's obviously horrible. He's going to kill everybody, and
yes,
we want to root for his downfall, but we almost have to kind of like him. It's almost like Lecter actually in Silence of the Lambs, right? Lecter's awful.
Yes,
but you kind of have to go. Yeah.
Not supposed to be the worst, right? Like, Lecter's only delightful because creepy, what's-his-face Buffalo Bill is over there being worse.
Right. Like, you find yourself saying, like, look, if I had to be friends with a serial killer, it would be Anthony Hopkins, but not Buffalo Bill.
Or, in another 90s reference and beloved cultural text, the T-Rex versus the Velociraptor.
Oh, right? Outstanding choice there.
Because... yeah, like the T-Rex is very sweet compared to the Velociraptor.
Oh, you understand why the T-Rex does T-Rex things. And in fact, when you see
you just don't move, which I've learned since then is like a load of garbage.
Yeah, but like the T-Rex actually has like a full-on face turn, to borrow wrestling terminology. It was WrestleMania over the weekend. T-Rex shows up, it's a she, right? I mean, it's
they're all girl dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
Right, because life finds a way.
Except for life finds a way, right? So I guess maybe not anymore. But they're supposed to be all female dinosaurs. I don't remember. Yeah,
they're supposed to be. Who would have thought that like B.D. Wong would have been the great villain of Jurassic Park?
And continued.
He's good though. I was like, oh, this makes sense. Sure, why not? Let's. I don't know. Jurassic Park's a hot mess, but I'm a huge Sam Neill fan, so I hoped. I was delighted that we open up Jurassic Park and Sam Neill's actually in Montana. So he's finally able to like make the transition from Red October, Jurassic Park. He's able to see Montana. Everybody wins.
So for you, all of these actors are going along these long character progressions that like span movies. I love that.
I should probably have less time on my hands, I think.
What if they die? Do they reinvigorate for another movie?
Oh, like the actors?
Yeah, like in your Cosmos. Like if somebody like dies. So like, okay, do Nicole Kidman. So she dies in Moulin Rouge, but then she goes on, right?
Right. Oh, she does. She dies in Moulin Rouge.
Oh, sorry, big spoiler.
We actually did that on HATM, but it was a musical, so I ditched that night and I had someone else cover because.
What?
Oh, have I always do that.
Moulin Rouge?
No, and I love Ewan McGregor.
You really should see it. Do you know what?
Why?
There's a Diamond Dog reference in both Con Air and Moulin Rouge.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll.
And they're both for David Bowie or whatever.
What's going on right now is there's just a gigantic spreadsheet. Someone out there is like starting to create of like.
Get out your like big board with twine.
Well, it's like that meme of the dude from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, right? Where he's like, oh, I'll send it to you. But yes.
Okay.
People are like, what movie are you guys talking about at this point in time? We're like, we're actually going to hit them all.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Well, we were talking about Diamond Dog, who is another major 90s plot line because he is Ving Rhames' character, and he's a Black nationalist and a gang kingpin in the movie. I think. Oh no, he's convicted of terrorism, Wikipedia says. So why do I think he's a gang kingpin in the movie? He must have said something that made me think that, but apparently I'm wrong.
I got the sense that he was too, right? This idea that inside the clink, I don't know, like inside jail, he was clearly the head of a faction, because you've got to stand him as an ideological opposite. And the fact that he and Malkovich are working together is not like why isn't Ving Rhames running the show versus, say, Malkovich, right? This is a question that they pose early on. But to get back to something you had actually said earlier in the pod, which is like, there are a lot of these dudes here who are not coincidental to the film, right? This is actually trying to like say a lot about like where we are in the late 90s. I mean, why is there a Ving Rhames in this film? Like, what is this trying to say about, say, Black nationalism or that moment in time?
So in my next book, I'm actually writing a little bit about the first Supermax prison, which was built in Florence, Colorado in the early 1990s. So one of the things that it's historically interesting for a lot of different reasons, but one of the things about it that's immediately striking is that this prison basically looks like Con Air, in that it's like a who's who of every major convicted superstar celebrity felon in this time period. So it has, at various points, the Oklahoma City bomber, it has the Unabomber, it has prominent figures like this black nationalist character. It has white nationalists and white power activists. And then it has like, drug kingpins. It has the first World Trade Center bomber. So Islamist violence. And then it has just like a bunch of sort of like, Cyrus the Virus sort of figures who are thought to be so dangerous that they can't be in a regular prison for whatever reason. And then that prison is like, I forget what they say there. I don't recall in Con Air where they say they're trying to go. I think it's just like a prison transfer. But like, if they were moving all those people to one place, it would be this place in Florence.
Now, where's Florence at?
It's about 45 minutes away from Denver, into the mountains.
No kidding.
Sort of like if you go down I-25 towards Pueblo, it's like to the west into the mountains.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to go to Arvada like all the time, so it's not that it's closer.
Yeah, it's closer not far. It's not far at all. And that prison is the first one that does like 24-hour solitary confinement. They deliberately make it so you can't see anything when you look out your cell window. Everything in the cell is made out of concrete, so nothing can be detached and made into a weapon. So like concrete bed, concrete toilet, or maybe welded on, but like everything is attached. It limits human contact to the point that it's like, it's an architecture of violence in its own way. But this who's who quality where like, not to be trite, but it's sort of like a chickens coming home to roost from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? Like it's all of the people who have been convicted of horrific crimes or representatives of political extremism in any direction end up in this same kind of a container. I'm saying container now because I'm picturing the tin can airplane in Con Air instead of the facility in Florence. But it's the same kind of idea. So we see that like, that kind of like rogues gallery quality. Mm-hmm. Is a historical reality in this time period.
Was this Supermax prison? Was it a private prison or is it a federal operating?
It's a federal ADX facility.
So when do we see like the rise then of like private prisons? Do you know?
Same time period. So the carceral boom is sort of starts in the 70s and 80s, but really takes off in an exponential way in the 90s. So these are the Con Air years are, not only private prisons and the Supermax, but we also see like, the explosion of powers for the DEA. We do have a DEA agent on this movie that gets killed, I think, trying to.
Because he won't listen. Because they're trying to skirt the rules.
Yeah, don't skirt the rules, DEA man. You have to be honorable like Cameron Poe.
Right. You kill with your hands. He might as well have been wearing a red shirt. You knew the second is like, here's the guy we've never heard of, DEA agent. You know he's going to get killed like immediately.
Yeah. Skirting the rules and also just being dumb about it.
Well, speaking of prison systems, this might be a bit of a stretch. Did you see the film with Ray Liotta called No Escape? I think it comes out about the same time in like 99, somewhere there. So it's set in the future. And the idea was that in the future, you wouldn't have prisons. You would just drop all these people off on an island, and you would just off the coast of wherever, and then just surround said island with like battleships and guns and blah, blah, blah. And then it was like the prisoners have to establish their own societies and take care of themselves. And inevitably there's the good guy prisoners versus the bad guy prisoners and stuff like that. Talk about a good, bad movie. That's one of them. Because Leota was having this moment.
I will definitely go and watch that movie. It reminds me a lot of, I just finally watched Maze Runner on the airplane.
I haven't seen that one.
It's the same. Well, it's not about prison per se, but there's a lot of like.
If we were going to channel Foucault, all of this is about prison.
That's true. I mean, if we were going to channel Foucault, everything is about discipline. And
I never read Foucault. I was like, I'm not doing it. My work's in Florida. Well, Florida's prison enough. I'm good. I'm not. Like, get me out of grad school as fast as you can. I'm not doing Foucault. It's like these conversations would come up. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go hide my books over here. I'm just sitting here. Was it over yet? So people are like, why don't you guys like French people? So like, you try reading it. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, there was this whole. We're finding ourselves in the 1990s with a lot to say about a lot of different things.
This is what I'm saying. It's like the crest of all of these different. I like Con Air because it's like this densely tangled ball of.
You got one of everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to talk about Trejo. Trejo is he's Mexican in the film. Is that correct? Is that what's understood?
I don't know if they care that much about it in the film, but I mean, yeah, because he's played by Danny Trejo.
Right, and he's with the 23. Is that what he's called?
Yeah, Johnny 23.
Right, so he's
creepy serial rapist, which I feel like that plot line is mainly there to create an opportunity for Nicolas Cage to save yet another woman's honor real quick. Just because it's hard to make the wife be in danger again because she's not on the plane, which is a big problem for the people writing the movie.
Well, how do you develop a sense of urgency for like care of other people other than Nicolas Cage on the plane, right? You've got his buddy who's diabetic, right? Yeah. And then you've got, I think Sally is her name in the
guard.
Yeah, the guard, and by Rachel Ticotin, right? Who is in Total Recall with Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah,
and she kicked ass in that movie. So, you've got to create something else, somebody else who needs saving, right? Otherwise, you can't play How Do I Live Without You? Which, do we have to talk about the song in this movie as well?
I mean, it's a moment. I noticed that it was nominated for Best Song and Worst Song for several different awards. But it's also like the song. Like you could not turn on the radio around this time without hearing that song.
This song actually has two singers, though. There are two versions going on at the exact same time. So LeAnn Rimes sings like this initially, and I think it goes number one on the pop charts.
Yeah.
And I think the country music people are weirded out about a 14-year-old girl singing about How Do I Live Without You? So then Trisha Yearwood sings the song, and it goes number one on the country charts, if I'm correct.
Weird. That's weird because LeAnn, what's her name? LeAnn Rimes was also. Oh, Wikipedia says this might not be true.
Oh, it's clearly true if it's on Wikipedia.
Wikipedia says that.
What does ChatGPT say?
Wikipedia says that Trisha Yearwood sang it for the film, so maybe they did that so they could be in for like best song nomination. Because isn't it a original song then if it's re-recorded?
I don't know.
Potato. That song was everywhere. Was there another
song in this movie at all?
Yeah, the very conspicuous "Sweet Home Alabama" song moment.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Where you're like, ooh, I don't know if the song means what y'all think it means. But what are you going to do?
Well, I have another Alabama-related thing because here's another musical-related tidbit for you. I don't know if you read this or not. Cameron and Poe inspired yet another classic American song. Do you know this song?
No.
Kid Rock, American Badass.
Really?
Yes. Just when you thought this film couldn't get trashy enough.
Wait. Well, first I have to wonder whether there's any like hair admiration between Nicolas Cage in this movie and Kid Rock, and if so,
the dressing is the same. Are they not? Are they not both wearing the white undershirts?
Oh, for sure.
Right,
the white undershirts that we will not refer to in the colloquial way. That's incredibly ineffective.
Actually, can we address that for a second?
Well. So okay, wait. American Badass.
Yeah.
I don't even.
Do you not know that song?
I probably do. Hang on.
Okay, it's actually on my gym playlist, but don't judge me for that. So I'm like, am I angry because I'm listening to Kid Rock, or am I listening to Kid Rock, or does Kid Rock make me angry? I don't know.
Wait, this was inspired by Con Air? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I read on the internet.
Whoa! Part of the lyrics are "Who knew I'd blow up like Oklahoma."
Okay, I never thought about that much. I was just listening to it. I am,
Well,
because
I'll tell
I'm
you
like,
something. I'm uniquely sensitive to that particular reference, so it might not really.
oh, I didn't. Yeah, then don't. Yeah, I didn't
Um,
know. I didn't know that part, and I never even thought about like I never even heard that lyric before.
well, anyway,
Now I'm
um,
feeling horrible, but mostly just because I mentioned Kid Rock in public.
don't feel horrible. Look,
Oh
everybody
yeah.
loves. It's okay.
Oh,
So
I don't love Kid Rock. He's awful.
it's okay. It's okay.
I have Limp Bizkit on that gym playlist. It's that bad. It might be the world's worst gym playlist.
Sometimes you need a song at the gym that makes you run away from the song, right? It's okay.
Yeah, that's why I've got Pitbull. It's my running song. But I'm throwing love down to 305. I got mutual friends with him, so I'm actually calling him as my own. Um,
Okay. I like that. I
anyway,
like that very much for you. So I'm also interested. We should probably talk about the whole scene about crashing into the Las Vegas Strip.
okay, that may have been the greatest contribution of this film is to try to destroy all of Las Vegas, but that's just
I mean, like from the point of view of like what is the biggest like crazy plane crash we can think of. Okay, so this is also we I'm not to bring the mood down because this the Las Vegas Strip plane crash sequence is amazing just from a technical level. Just a couple of years after Con Air, it became really not okay to do any kind of plane crash movie because 9/11, right? But right before that, and I was remembering this recently while rereading the Left Behind books for the book I'm working on right now,
oh
um,
god.
which are if you're not familiar, they're the Christian apocalypse books where the faithful are raptured away and everybody else is just sort of just like left to deal with the absence of good people from the earth while
It's like
Satan.
literary Limp Bizkit for Baptists.
Well, that's not wrong. So, but like stunning amount of that book is just about air travel logistics because like if all of the pilots suddenly rapture out of the airplanes like you have to
Mhm.
there's all these crashes and there are traffic problems and like how do you get all the characters into the same part of the country, it's an entire situation. And then I found out that there are two versions of the Left Behind movie. One is with Kirk Cameron. It's a very faithful, no pun intended, version of the book. The other one is with Nicolas Cage. Have you seen Nick Cage Left Behind?
No, no, I rejected like all respect to the believers in the world. I left Southern Baptism behind in Kentucky 20 something years ago. So no, I missed out on missed out on the rapture moment, and we'll probably miss out on the rapture moment in the future.
But the amazing thing about the Nicolas Cage version of Left Behind is it is fully just Con Air again without the cons. It's just like, can we land the plane? It goes through like only the first few chapters of the book because they only do the part about can we land the plane? Like it's fully just
That's
right
it.
on air. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That's only like the first section of the first. There are like 10 Left Behind books. I will admit I have not read all of them, but the first book has like a lot of major plot that happens after, spoiler alert, the plane successfully lands, even though there are many problems based on flightless or pilotless
Wait,
plane cars.
I'm confused. If all these people disappear, but Kirk Cameron is still alive, why isn't Kirk?
Because he had impure thoughts about the flight attendant and he didn't go to church enough. So he didn't make the cut.
Oh, this is about moral quandary. Oh,
Well, it's
okay.
only the totally faithful get raptured. There's like a class of like not quite good enough people who are supposed to learn God's work.
Work their way up.
And well, no, they have to like go through tribulations and survive and try to defeat Satan or whatever.
Just like a Spartan race.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot. There's a lot to do. They have to be like in strike force or whatever.
All right, I've got another thought. So when does Lost come out? Like 2002, something like that? Because that also plane crash
Oh,
very. I mean, it's probably the biggest. I mean, because Lost was like
2004.
appointment television, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so a couple 3 years after 9/11, you start to see I don't know what other films have featured plane crashes since then or when they were showing up in pop culture, but it's
I would be interested to know. But Lost is also a plane crash that's like way away from buildings and people, right?
yeah.
Like I remember they canceled one of the Spider-Man movies
Mm-hmm.
because there was a plot line about a plane crashing into New York City and he spun a web to stop the plane or something, but
Between the
everyone,
towers.
yeah, between the towers. So it's interesting how like this end of the 20th century moment is like we're going to crash a plane into the Las Vegas Strip.
Well, it's interesting because I was talking to someone else the other day talking about how 2001 for Americans, and I would imagine for the rest of the world to some extent, but certainly for Americans, signals an end in a lot of ways of pop culture innocence. Everything seems to
Yeah.
change post September 11th, right? So you can do a lot of this cataclysmic stuff like see how big of an explosion we can make or do whatever. The world is ending, say with Armageddon, you can blow up Las Vegas, you can do whatever. And then there's this stopping point. I mean, I think films even stop in production to reassess what to do in the middle of violence. And if I can, I'll tell you, we had the Nashville thing last
Yeah.
week, a week ago Monday. I don't want to like bring the spirit down here, but one of the things I want to talk to you about was like, I got to tell you, it absolutely, I grew up an hour and a half away from there. We lived in Clarksville for a short time, so I was an hour away from Nashville. Um, and so I was trying to figure out like when can I laugh again? When is it okay to like, do this kind of stuff? And it was like, we have these like keystone moments in our time, and unfortunately, I hate to say this, but it almost feels like Nashville will get kind of blended in with others. So I don't know. It's like these movies kind of start, and then there's a stopping point with September 11th, and then I guess at some point in time we go, okay, we can start to have end of the world films or something like that or whatever.
Yeah.
But getting back to Las Vegas,
No, I
um,
mean, this is all part of the same thing, though, I think, because 9/11 is one of those Keystone Moment benchmarks, but the
mhm.
Columbine shooting is the other one, right? Which
Yeah,
is 99.
absolutely.
And I was just thinking about, like, I was thinking as looking as you were speaking before that Armageddon and Deep Impact both come out. Those are like end of the 90s, like giant space
98.
explosions, 98, 99. I forget about Independence Day, but it was around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all big space
Independence Day is like
explosions.
97, 96.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that those two things together, Columbine and 9/11, are really the pivot
Yeah.
to where we find ourselves now. And I absolutely agree with you that like there's no yeah, I'm from Colorado, so there's no time when that feeling ever really stops if you're from an impacted place. And the amazing thing is that it's more and more and more people who have that experience all the time. More and more children, more and more families, more and more people. And we're starting to get stories, about like, Las Vegas is the site of another shooting. We have people who, have survived multiple mass shootings. We have all kinds of measures. We pass them all the
Mm.
time about how bad it's gotten and how bad it can get. And I think the 90s are really instructive in looking at what exactly was that pivot? What happened? What changed? Because I think there really is a hinge there at the end of the 90s into the early 2000s.
Do your students know any of these films? Like you're at Northwestern now, right?
Yeah.
So, which I meant to ask you about this whole Chicago pizza thing. Pause for a second. Thoughts on Chicago? Because Denver and Colorado have its own kind of pizza. I know you said your family's from Tennessee, so they have their own kind of pizza there as well. It's called chicken.
I was going to say, what pizza are you eating in Tennessee?
Actually, there's this amazing place. I don't know if you know Tennessee at all, but
Yeah,
I have this ex girlfriend of mine who used to bring me down this place called in Christiana, which is out near
that's where my
Murfreesboro.
mom is from.
Baloney, that is
Yeah.
insane. There's this place. It's what's it called? Like, golly, it's an old gas station, and they've got the best Southern food I've ever
Shut up. Is it
had.
Miller's Country Store?
It is Miller's Country Store.
Sure.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Forget pizza. Just go to Miller's Country Store and just
Oh
say,
my
"May I
gosh.
have today?" And that's all you need.
Oh, Miller's Country Store is the truth in life.
Yes, it's
You want a
great.
rapture? Go to Miller's.
Agreed. I totally agree. It's so good.
Wow.
So good. And then the 4 vegetable plate. That's the way to go.
No. You get the 4 pie plate, the pecan pie, everything. No, absolutely not. No, that place is amazing though.
That place is
Like
really amazing.
it's so. I have sent some people there.
My mom grew up sharecropping and used to pick cotton near there, but she went to high school in Christiana way back when it was a nylons factory was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is insane. That place is like, if you go to Nashville, drive 45 minutes outside of Nashville, people are like, oh, I got to get hot chicken. I'm like, no, get your ass on the road.
You should really go to Christiana and go to Miller's Country Store if you ever have any opportunity to do so. I totally agree.
Without question.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I know. Well, you're like, well, Tennessee. I'm like, well, Tennessee's kind of big, but I'm gonna throw this out there.
Well, and my dad is from a different part of Tennessee entirely that has a totally different cultural footprint.
Memphis?
Bristol.
Oh, I know. Oh, okay, I know.
Yeah.
The
race he was cars. From there kind of before all the cars were there, so there's NASCAR there now, but there wasn't then.
Yeah, I'm like
NASCAR,
2 hours away from Daytona.
Since we're doing a history thing, the NASCAR is there because of the moonshiners, like my great uncle Lester.
Good time. Uncle Lester is an awesome name for a great uncle, by the way. I hope that you have awesome stories about great uncle Lester.
Well, he used to sell moonshine to the sheriff, so.
I'm disappointed how easy it is for me to get moonshine these days. I'm like, this should be more of this should be like, I should have to ask around more. Now I just go home like, Mom, where do I get, I asked my mother where to get moonshine. She's like, oh, I got some. It's like, the hell, Mom? This is too easy.
Wait, so what part of Florida are you in? Because I have family, my family also was in Ocala for a long time.
Okay, so I actually wrote a dissertation about Ocala. So that's where my dissertation was written. Like my whole manuscript that I read, because I wrote about the origins of cattle culture in Florida.
Oh,
and,
cool.
Introduced, and the argument I make is Florida is cattle are responsible for culture change and everything. Florida's cow country. It's all you can't grow cotton in the interior peninsula of Florida. And what I actually argue is that you don't have Seminole Tribe of Florida without cattle, because Seminoles were the first people to come down and really monopolize this resource. There's by 1750, there's 20,000 head of cattle just roaming feral after the Spanish missions collapse. So the Seminoles are or people who become Seminoles, pardon me, essentially go, we can do this. We can roll with this. I mean, I'm really, really generalizing, so I hope nobody's offended here. But the basic idea is that Native folks really understand how to incorporate this animal into their livelihoods and economies. And as a result, their success in Florida ultimately encourages the Americans to go, oh, if we take that from them, we could also be successful. So a lot of these wars about indigenous dispossession actually become wars over cattle lands, because Seminoles and Miccosukes have so successfully shaped the land and through their labor on the resources and stuff like that. So a lot of my initial work is actually up near Ocala, which is a sore spot for a lot of Kentuckians, because Ocala's oh, we have horses, and my people are like, the hell you say? What? No, no, you don't. So,
the 20th century Ocala story is that they have their Silver Springs, as you know, which is a resort situation. Yeah. One of my aunts was one of the first mermaids at Silver Springs, where your job is an underwater person holding your breath while smiling and keeping your eyes open for pictures.
I can totally see this in the 1950s tourism. There's Silver Spring, Weeki Wachee was a big spot. Absolutely. And that water is cold.
Yeah,
it's super cold.
She was very pretty. The pictures are amazing. Here's the mer person.
Oh, that's awesome. If you ever come across it, send it, because I would love to see it. So I'm actually in Stewart, which is half an hour, 35 minutes north of West Palm Beach.
Okay,
where absolutely nothing is happening today.
Definitely
whatsoever. Definitely not. Actually, so our claim to fame, we live on something called the Treasure Coast here, right? Oh, are you familiar with Long John Silver and Treasure Island and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure.
So this would have been organized violence in the 1700s, right? So the ship that there has all the gold, the Urca de Lima, is actually shipwrecked about 100 yards offshore, about half an hour north of here. So
Wow.
there's all these shipwrecks, and they call it the Treasure Coast because this is where all the galleons would sail by and crash
You go dive
and spell like
snorkeling on Outer Banks.
no, because there are bull sharks here like nobody's business. Like, no. Herbie no swim. Like, not like all I have are alligators and sharks and jellyfish and iguanas and people from everywhere else. Like, no, I'm out. No,
Yeah,
it's
okay,
dangerous
I
here.
can understand that.
So I'm just afraid, is what I'm trying to say. I'm terrified of where I live. So Florida is like America's Australia.
Oh,
We
I
have
get
pythons. We have 18-foot long pythons.
and
They're
outlaws.
terrifying. And outlaws, exactly. So, okay, I have a question for you. You get to recast this film in 2023.
Ooh.
Who is Cameron Poe and who is
Oh,
Cyrus the
Nicolas
Virus? We'll
Cage
just do
again.
two.
Obviously Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
With the same accent. I make no changes, no edit.
Okay, no
No
changes
edit.
whatsoever.
Wait, and then who else do we need?
Well, you need a John Malkovich character.
Oh my gosh. Wait, so why don't you tell me your casting? Because I think you've thought about this.
No, I actually just thought about it like in the last 10 seconds. So I love your idea of Nicolas. Actually, you know what I want to do? I want to make this movie with the exact same cast, just 25 years older, where it's just like,
Yeah. Except you know what would be amazing? Is everybody move down one seat. So like Nicolas Cage be Cyrus the Virus.
oh, we'll call it Retcon Air.
And then like, let's see. Cameron Poe. I want Danny Trejo to be Cameron Poe. That'd be amazing.
You know what? I'm gonna take John Cusack out. I'm gonna make one change.
Tell
I'm
me.
gonna replace John Cusack with John Leguizamo. I feel like
Oh
this movie
yeah.
needs John Leguizamo.
John Leguizamo. I could see that. I have to give this some more thought. I'm gonna have to follow this up. But this again, I
This
feel
should be
like
like a
this
running
is one
Twitter
that
vote.
Twitter. Yes, I was just gonna say, Twitter. How would you recast Con Air in 2023, with or without Nicolas Cage? But I feel that Nicolas Cage should be in it somewhere, and not just in that like 1 minute of cameo kind of way. In a fully, we're paying the Nicolas Cage money and he's in the movie the whole time kind of way.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be a really good idea, especially as accountable as Twitter is these days. That would
Yeah.
be like we would be able to get like a very scientific thought on this. Okay, let me ask you this then. This is an action film. Give me your three best action film. Are you an action film connoisseur?
I like all good bad movies that are
Okay.
actually
You want to give me your top three
good
best
bad
bad
movies.
movie? Yeah, top three good bad movies.
Ooh.
Let's do that.
We were
Outside of
doing-
Con Air, of course, which you
Yeah,
said is the
for
best.
a little
So you're
while
2
during
through
the
4.
pandemic, we were doing this movie night with my graduate students by Zoom, and the rule was it had to be a movie, not a film, because I
Films are
feel
serious.
yes, I feel that people need to de-escalate every once in a while.
That was the whole point behind this whole shenanigan years ago.
Well, the problem was we ended up watching a bunch that turned out to be like good ones.
Such
But,
as
like 9 to 5, Working Girl, those two.
God, dying to get 9 to 5 on.
Yeah, did you watch Working Girl yet?
I haven't. Well, the original, yeah, I've seen it. Right,
love
it's good.
We watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which I think is a pretty good
course.
bad movie. I'm trying to think about like what are the other ones that I think are. Oh, you know what I want to see that I haven't seen forever is Waterworld. I'm pretty sure that's a good bad movie.
Oh, that's a good environmental film.
Mhm.
You were talking about environmental history and like,
I'm pretty sure it's a movie, not a film, because it has a lot of exploding
yeah, it's a lot. Well, first of all, Dennis Hopper is his entire performance is just if
things.
yeah. There were some casting decisions were made, and I think Kevin Reynolds. That was actually really interesting because that movie flopped, and a lot of the reason why it flopped was because that was when we started to get people commenting on films while they were being made. So there was this whole thing about like the film's going over production budget and all this kind of stuff, and it turned people off. So that started to like that was right as that moment was starting to happen as well.
Yeah.
And Costner was trying to like Costner doesn't like to make small movies, so.
No.
Although I think he's having his own like this whole Yellowstone thing is really
Yeah.
he's having a thing.
I also love Jurassic Park. I can't help it. I love
You're not
that
calling that a bad movie though, are you?
No. I was
Okay.
going back to action movies. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Transition back to action movies. Sorry. I'm gonna go Con Air, first Jurassic Park movie, none of the later Jurassic Park movies.
All right.
And then I have to think about it for a while. I don't
Now you
know.
got to go with what comes to mind. First thing that pops in.
I got to think about it for a minute. Like one where I was legitimately like, oh no, I'm worried during the movie.
The
I'd
Remains
think
of the
about
Day.
it. Hold on, it'll the remains of the day. It'll come to me. We should.
Bonfire of the Vanities.
It'll come to me. I watch some. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't watch a lot of action movies.
You saw Die Hard.
Yeah, Die Hard's fine. I
Die Hard is
don't
fine.
know. It's fine. I
All right.
wasn't like involved in that movie. I get
Predator.
involved in no. I also don't like the ones that go into like fully into action or not action, but horror, like scary.
I don't like horror movies at all.
I like action movies without the creepiness. I don't want any creepiness.
Now I'm thinking about oh, you're from
Ghostbusters.
Colorado. Okay. I was going to give you the Sylvester
Red
Stallone
Dawn.
rock climbing movie. No, oh my God, I'm writing a piece on Red Dawn right now. You want
Yeah.
to hear my thesis on this? This is my first foray. It's the first time I've ever actually tried to write a piece
Okay,
on
tell
film.
me.
I think Red Dawn was the most dangerous film made since Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
You know, I posted some stuff about Nashville afterwards in my hometown, and folks were just like, how could you say that? You don't like it. You can just go. And I can't help but think that my generation, I'm 45, we grew up not only expecting Soviet invasion, but embracing and waiting for it to happen. And folks, I think, internalized it and thought, I can't get rid of my guns because we're going to have to defend America, and I can't wait for that day.
Yeah.
And we can't get rid of our guns now because, and look, I still love the movie.
Yeah, I think Red Dawn is like that. I think that the Left Behind books are like that. I showed my class the day after one time and posted about it because they were really bothered by it. And then I found on Twitter that like 3,000 people were like, oh yes, I still have nightmares about that movie.
You know what I'm dying to see as a remake of is On the Beach. Do you know this film?
I don't.
On the Beach was made in the 1950s. And essentially what it is a group of people waiting on the coast of Australia, waiting for this post-nuclear war, waiting for the fallout to reach them. There's no escaping it. And it's just about the last days of humanity as they wait. But again, all these movies are products of the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
Except for Con Air. I don't see Cold War in Con Air, do we? There's no Cold War here, is there?
Go back and look. I mean, there's the war on drugs, so it depends on how far we want to read, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's stretching.
Let me see.
There's no Soviet guy here in this film. Well, Cyrus, where's Cyrus from?
I'm looking at Cyrus. Cyrus Grissom. I don't think so.
That's a stretch. Grissom is what? German, English ancestry? I mean,
definitely not like your typical Russian bad guy.
No, but if Ancestry.com wants to sponsor this pod now, they can go ahead and pony up. That'd be fine.
Just let us know.
I'll sell that. I don't even care.
There's like a bunch of drug cartel stuff. So I mean, no, I think that like no. And actually, when does True Lies come out? I've wondered about if we could go back and do like a census of when we pivot from Russian bad guy to vaguely Arabic bad guy.
Oh, I think True Lies is what, 94? Does that feel right? 94, 95, somewhere in the range?
That's a great action movie, by the way.
Well, here's a great question, which is like, okay, we asked like when Cold War is shown in these films, when does the Cold War stop being? You know, when do we essentially when do we stop talking about the Cold War in film? Because there's reflections of Vietnam, fears of Soviet Russia. When do we start talking about the Middle East, like you were just saying?
We start the Middle East, I mean, I think early 90s with the Gulf War and the first World Trade Center bombing attempt. And then, of course, after 9/11, it's like, you know, the new story.
There's some Chuck Norris films out there, too. In the 1980s, there was, what was it called? The one where they're like trying to stop the hijacking.
Oh.
And then also Iron Eagle, if you ever saw that. Another great bad movie.
I don't think so.
You never saw Iron Eagle with Luke Gossett Jr.? It's like the GoBots to Top Gun's Transformers. That's my analogy. It's great though.
Okay, I'll look for that one.
Thought. Yeah.
Yeah, but to your earlier question about like, have my students seen any of these movies? Yeah. I taught a 9/11 class last year on the anniversary because they don't remember 9/11. So to the extent that they've seen these, I think they have been directed to them either by, I don't know, something on their social or a friend or somebody saying it or classes. But like I think this is all now archival.
Well, think
um,
about it, right? Like I was born in '77, so several years after fall of Saigon, and yet I grew up. My entire childhood, my identity was forged in the aftermath of Vietnam. Right?
yeah,
These
absolutely.
students, same thing with you can't live in 2023 without experiencing 9/11 to this day, right?
No, and it's really interesting the parts that they did and didn't know about, right? Because so these is now, all of them were too early to have their own memories, whether they were not born yet or whether they were too small to remember. But with one exception, none of them had ever actually watched any news footage of 9/11, which I think is extraordinary because it's
Wow.
so permeated. And what they said to me was that they felt that it was disrespectful to click on the news footage. They felt that looking at it was somehow disrespectful, which I thought was
I
so
can
interesting.
understand that.
Yeah, but like anybody older, even a little older, like there's no way you couldn't have, like, there's no way you could have avoided seeing it. And it also speaks to how different where they get their news is from where I get my news, right? Like, or where I got my news back then.
Is there actually now that we're on this whole 9/11 thing? I want to come back to it because actually come back to your scholarship, which is the
Yeah.
idea that how is 9/11 affected like these white paramilitary groups, say in the United States, or violence? Is that a response to that, or is it are these things just an idea of fear mongering as far as it's the government that's going to get us? Where does the outside play into these
Yeah.
groups?
I think the big legacy of 9/11 for white power is just that the all the resources for surveilling and fighting extremist groups were channeled away from white power militant right groups and towards Islamic terror groups, Islamist terror. So we have this big blind spot of lack of information and surveillance. Um, Actually, we have several blind spots. We have one in the 70s because of, well, the 60s and 70s because of COINTELPRO. And then we have another one from sort of executive level disinterest in the problem. And then, it's just, we don't have a good sort of historical record because the records that we have are all pieced together by watchdog organizations. So after 9/11, that problem deepens a lot. But I actually think we really don't have a history of that period yet. So my book goes up to about 1996. So McVeigh and then the Olympic Park bombing. And then I don't think we have a really good idea of what happens between about 1996 and the Charlottesville rally in 2017. I don't think there's not enough data gathering and record keeping either through governmental or non-governmental sources. And they're also using the internet a lot more after 95. And the early internet, is piecemeal. So I actually was looking at this rogues gallery in Con Air wondering like there should for sure be a couple of white nationalists on that flight, but it would have caused too many problems for the
Yeah, it's
bomb.
like what like do they say like this person is from Idaho? I'm like, no, I'm just gonna.
I was looking actually. There's there's like a vague Billy Joe character who gets killed pretty fast, but I don't know where he's supposed to
Billy
be from.
Joe was a Southern name. That was my grandfather's name.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I
not that
mean
the South has a trademark on it, but
there's southern white power groups too, but I don't
really crazy. All right, let me ask you our big moment here.
Okay.
Is Con Air a history film?
Oh, yeah. Con Air has this perfect mix of all of these different like cultural threads that were at play in the 90s. It's an excellent sort of, I don't know, it's about the carceral state, it's about different political trajectories, it's about air technology, it's about the Marshal Service, it's about the rise of the city of Las Vegas and the Strip as a cultural icon. And of course, it is part of the trajectory of the great historical figure, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without Nicolas Cage and Con Air. And do we want a sequel? Are we ready for a sequel for Con Air?
Oh my God.
How would we
Oh,
do a
that would
sequel?
blow my mind. That's what they should do is get all these people back and do a for real sequel.
Well, you can't because they're all dead in the first one, except from like Steve Buscemi, who was retired after saving the Earth in '98. But
yeah, they did. I also feel that they sort of killed John Malkovich more than once in that last sequence.
they killed him a lot.
They killed him more than once. They killed him a lot of different times. Like they did like a full head flying off, getting crushed by a thing, and then also getting killed again after that. Like I feel like they killed him extra.
Yeah, I mean, really, his name was like code name Rasputin or something like that. Like that's how many times they had to kill him.
Maybe he could have like a twin brother or like a distant cousin or something. Or maybe there could be a federal marshal that just happens to look so much like Cyrus the Virus that he like has a whole career as an undercover agent.
Something like that. I think. Well, Nicolas Cage is retired at what, 30? I mean, how old is he in this film? Like after the 7 years in prison, I think he's got to do something. He's clearly got to go become a U.S. Marshal, and now he's the Marshal, bringing up some rookie guy.
They'd have to have like a really good premise, but I think it would be. I would watch it. I would watch it even if it was terrible because I love the original so much.
Well, we watched it because it was terrible was the whole point. And the premise is let's put all these people on a plane and have them fight. So now what we're going to do is put them all in an air balloon and have them fight over New Mexico.
What would it be? I don't think
Albuquerque Arrival.
It'd be funny if it were some other mode of transportation as the sequel, like con bus.
Oh yeah, you like. Well, let's think about like okay, so the internet. So we don't have rail because we live in the United States, so we can't really do that. Planes are. We've already done planes. Con. What if it's like con Airbnb and all these guys have got to like share a resort in Tahoe, and really the villain is like the owner of the house who keeps charging them money for like cleaning and vacuuming.
And it could be like Nicolas Cage being like, "You guys, I found a camera in the cabinet."
There's a script here coming soon from HATM Films.
That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Airbnb. You heard it here first.
Done. Kathleen, where can people find you on the internets and all the other places?
I am at Kathleen_Belew, Belew at Twitter. On Twitter.
On Twitter until we find something else.
Actually,
it's the con people It's con people setting up a new social networking site. Is that we all actually like even more?
Yeah, seriously.
I would trust Cyrus the Virus more, right? I mean, he's not that bad of a guy.
No, but as we established, he's also quite dead. Extra dead.
So there's some workarounds. We got to do some polishing on script.
CameronPoe.com. I don't know.
We'll work on this.
I'm looking to see what's on the website just to make sure I haven't sent you somewhere weird. We're okay.
Are we good? Someone right now is going to be like buying the domain name, like right now. Like, oh, that's just in case.
It's for sale. Oh no, it's registered, but may still be available. Somebody has bookmarked it just in case there's another Con Air movie sometime.
Actually, I know who it is. It's Kevin Cruz. Kevin probably owns the rights to this. He's just waiting. He's actually waiting for his own turn on this so he can do Raising Arizona. So
that's a good movie. Love it.
You guys love Nicolas Cage, man. Y'all are just all in.
He's wonderful.
He is indeed. And that's a wrap here at Historians of the Movies podcast. Thank you so very much to our guest, Kathleen Belew, today. Kathleen, you're amazing. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you to our producer, Fletcher Powell, for doing the show here today. Could not do this show without you. And of course, I couldn't do any of this without you guys, the listeners. Thank you for continuing to be part of this movement, being all on a plane here with you together. Hopefully you don't find it to be too turbulent. Okay, I'm going to stop it with the metaphors, but you guys are awesome, so thank you for being part of this. If you want to learn more about HATM, you can find me on Twitter at HerbertHistory. You can search the hashtag HATM and find us watching a new movie every Sunday night. So look for us each and every week. Keep sharing the pod. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Hell, tell your enemies. That's fine. So glad that you've been here, and we'll catch you next time. Ciao for now.